What's up, everybody? This is Logan Tabor with All the Pretty Things. Please check out our new single, Carousel, anywhere you like to stream your music. And you're listening to John the Ninja.
Ladies and gentlemen, how you doing? It's John the Ninja back in the dojo, Studio C. That's because, I got C's when I was in high school. A couple A's, a couple B's here and there. But the gentleman I have here today, he's a video editor, he's a composer, and lyrically, he's a fabulous storyteller. His favorite whiskey is Wild Turkey, thanks to our man Matthew McConaughey, because they're both so cool. But when we look back at his time, he's a big fan of indie rock and Americana. In 6th and 7th grade, he used to go back and forth to class with a CD player listening to the U's and Damien Rice, Blink-182, Incubus, which was his first concert, keep that in mind, they were for a lot of us, and Chris Cornell. And thanks to his family having a background in music, his father being a touring musician, his mother being a manager, he was able to develop not only the skills to play himself, since he could play all instruments, but also have an understanding of how to be on the same playing field with the energy of musicians. The man I speak of is Logan Tabor, and his band he's here to promote is All the Pretty Things. Based out of Wilmington, North Carolina, this band is a combination of a lot of different bands, but they create a wonderful sound you wouldn't necessarily expect. I would say pop rock, but I don't think that does it justice considering how meticulous they spend every single second going over and designing these songs. Their latest and I would say most recent tracks would include Teenage Lines, Carousel, and a new single which forever we'll be talking about in a couple of seconds. But Logan assembles his lyrics using past and present influences, whether or not it's through his notebook or just coming up with it on the spot and creating songs that reach you on an intense level but still make you feel like you're in the moment. For the band, the journey is all about being together as friends. Here to talk about their upcoming album and their performance in Harrisburg, let's get it right, June 28th. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you Logan Tabor of All the Pretty Things. Good sir, how you doing today?
I'm good. Thanks for having me.
Looking good. Man, listen, I had to ask you first, why do you know so much about Jurassic Park? I saw you do a trivia game and you were counting, you know what, berries that made the rhinoceros sick? I think it was a triceratops. See, I don't even know the movie. You knew the names of everything, man. I was like, yo, do you have a tattoo of Jurassic Park? Is that true?
I I don't know, man. That's a hilarious question. I love that. I don't know. I think like even since I was a kid, I kind of obsessed over movies, and I would just watch them on repeat and like memorize everybody's lines, like Mrs. Doubtfire, Jurassic Park. I can go through those movies and just pick out lines, and I guess memorizing the lines kind of led to knowing random trivia facts about the movies, like the West Indian lilac thing with Triceratops. I just nerd out on some stuff, and I've always liked film and film editing and production, so it's been an obsession of mine next to music.
And that ties into your job, your everyday job. You actually have a wonderful website that I had to look into. You are a video editor. You've done all these projects. You've done long-term, short-term music videos. And I am so impressed because I love the art of actually editing audio, video. It's so fun. And I had to ask you, what were some of your favorite movies as far as the editing? They say it all the time at the movie awards shows, like for best editing, but people really don't understand what it's like to edit movie and TV and the spot. So what are some of your favorite movies that you enjoyed? And please don't say Citizen's Game, even if it is. I'm not the biggest fan of that movie.
um, as far as editing, man, honestly, this is a this is a controversial one. A lot of the Michael Bay movies, editing wise, are next level. I'm not the biggest fan in general, but whoever's editing his films mixed with his idea for direction is just next level. I mean, and you got like the Deadpool movies, and then what's that movie about the multiverse, the Everything Everywhere All the Time
Yeah,
movie?
I don't.
Crazy. Yeah.
Can I ask, is it because he is an action guy, he gets so much trash? Because I'm a big fan of the story. If the story is action, if it's not action, if it's a Tarantino, like mostly dialogue and then everybody gets shot up, I'm a big fan of, what is the story? Is it because he's an action guy? Everyone's like, oh, the editing's trash. I'm like, it's not traditional cinema, you know?
He takes a more he and whoever he's working with take a more kind of like edgy, creative approach to the editing. Like that movie Six Underground. Did you ever see that one? It's like a Ryan Reynolds joint.
My friend did. He told me to watch it. I didn't get to see
Yeah,
it
the
yet.
Yeah, it's a cool movie in general. That's one of my more favorite Michael Bay movies. I think he gets trashed because, well, from what I've heard, and I don't necessarily care or agree, but a lot of people like to say that he takes all these things from our childhood and kind of messes with them a little bit, like the Turtles thing and the Transformers thing. And I think a lot of people give him grief because he leans on CGI so much, instead of live action practical effects, that sort of thing. It's a lot of digital post production stuff. But I mean, that's the way it goes these days, and the movies look great and they're really well done, and the editing is top notch.
Guys, I really want to stress, and I made it a point to plug this. Go to the logtab.com. That is his business website, and you can see all the editing work he's done. Even the intro for his website. I mean, like, all right, let me see. As a freelance video editor, musician, 13 years professional. It sounded great, but man, you grew up in a household that was basically your dad was a touring artist, top 40 cover band. Your mom was managing, and your dad was so supportive in getting you guys what you needed. He built like a sound cage for the drum kit. He introduced you to Genesis, and he introduced you to Phil Collins, which makes perfect sense when I hear your vocals and how you're constructing. I know you like to go over the little nuances of the syllables, like if you were a rap
Yeah.
artist. But back to it. I wanted to know what was that particular instrument that you really gravitated to growing up, and was Incubus, or was it Chris Cornell that was really that, this is my favorite band, this is my favorite musician? There's always that one artist musically that grabs you and says, I want to learn more about music as a whole.
Early on, it was definitely Incubus. I mean, so when I was becoming that age where you really start to like explore music and make your own music. I think "Make Yourself" was the album that was out, and then shortly after that, "Morning View" came out. And man, those two records, I think for a lot of people, not just me, were life changing. And I mean, I couldn't take them out of my portable CD player that I carried with me everywhere. And honestly, I think what I gravitated to, apart from just the fact that it was a really unique sound and they had great hooks and every musician was obviously at the top of their game, I think what I gravitated to was Brandon Boyd's lyricism. And so that really got me into going further, going deeper with songwriting, and trying to find more unique ways to express uh, feelings that are less unique, like whether it be heartbreak or coming of age or whatever it is, something that we all go through. He always had a really special way of putting things that made it relatable and easy to get your head around, but it caused you to think more about it, the subject, than you maybe had prior to listening.
And you've been very vocal on your approach to writing about the human condition. Shout out to Knox Colby. When I spoke to him about it, a lot of people know he's in a harder band like you used to be in, a little rougher, a little maybe death metal when you listen to it. But the
Yeah.
focus on the actual writing of the poetry, actually doing it as if it was the art just to be written down, I wanted to see how you approach it, looking at the human condition, considering, his life has been very tumultuous. It's been a little bit like heartache after heartache. Yours is more so, you'll take these religious references, but for somebody who's also been in the church, I can tell he doesn't necessarily, mean I'm calling to God. It's more of an idea of like, hey, listen, this is a story I'm telling you, understand the meaning behind it. So what's your
Mhm.
approach to trying to write from the human condition?
Well, really, it's like I guess I take the experiences that I've had personally, and then I try to find a way to marry them with the experiences that people close to me, friends and family, have had. But I also, a lot of times, man, I'll go out just into public, not necessarily intentionally going out to write about stuff, but I'll just be out and about, and I'll see people interacting, or I'll see some crazy thing happening here on the side of the road, and for some reason these like ideas, and like it's almost like I'm trying to write the backstory of these strangers that I'm seeing and the way they're interacting. And Yeah, that's a great question. It's just I see things, or at least I think I see things, and I come up with my own interpretation of them, and then I kind of try to merge those, like that interaction between strangers across a room with my own personal experience, so that I can actually inject some substance into it rather than just speculating about what's going on with these people over here. You know?
And you do have notebooks upon notebooks where you've written lyrics down. But I love the dichotomy between you and the guys and Tristan. And you guys are able to just come together. I was curious, what song that you guys were working on? We're going to go back and, to the other things. But I just thought the top of my head, what song was the one where you heard it and you instantly went, I have lyrics for this in one of the books. I have to get it now. Like it wasn't so much like you're writing it because you have to spend time with the music. You do that too. You listen to it over and over, and you get the feeling right. But what was that one song? He's like, oh no. I remember writing. So hold on. You had to go searching.
I think that would probably be "A New Forever." It's got this. It's funny because we started, so Worth demoed out the whole song pretty much, and I've been listening to it for a little bit, and I had this chorus in my head that was supposed to mean one thing, and it was supposed to be more about like a romantic relationship. But what it turned into, the more I like listened to the vibe of the song, I was like, man, this isn't gonna be a romantic song for me. So I kind of had to change up that chorus that I had that was romantic, and I knew that I wanted it to be more of like a socio-political kind of song. And I knew that I had over the years written down all kinds of crazy stuff that I finally had the opportunity to say. It's like the song had a certain vibe, and all songs do. I try to like pick the right lyrics for the. I want the lyrics to match the mood of the song, and going romantic for that song just wasn't jiving for me. So I kind of went heady and like sociological with it, and I just knew I had all kinds of stuff over the years that I'd never gotten to use because the instrumental of a song had never come to me that I thought was appropriate for it until that song, "I Knew Forever."
I look back on like your influences, and one you said that was a really huge deal was Chris Cornell. And
Oh yeah,
thinking of a guy who's just playing guitar, is like, oh screw it, I'll do it. We need somebody, and now he's one of the greatest ranges, one of the
this
nicest
guy.
guys. The radio station I was at, was so close to him. He had such a great relationship with everybody there, even the people in the mail room he knew by name. It was really fascinating. You know what what would you say you took the most from him? And was he what you base your singing on? Again, you have this ability to play all these instruments. Mom and dad made you do church choir along with worship music, etc. But, what about him do you really take and pull? Like, if I were to say, hey, I'm a lead singer and my favorite singer is Bon Scott, I would say the presence and the scream. He just
Hmm.
he just looked cool on stage. Didn't even look like he should have been there. Just hopped on stage, but he made it known, hey, we're here to rock. So what about Chris do you take and pull and have used in your career as a musician and singer?
I think with Chris, it's obviously I didn't know him personally, but what I can draw from his music, and oftentimes what it means to me. Not that this is necessarily what he meant, but my interpretation of a lot of it is this struggle with life and death, and with his relationship with spirituality. And it kind of seems from some of his songs like he struggled with it, like he was a spiritual person, maybe even a Christian person who struggled with it a lot, like his relationship with God, and like trying to merge that with his relationship with the world around him, like expectations versus reality kind of thing. Um, and that's from more of a writing standpoint. But as far as like just being drawn to him, his vocals were just so fearless. Like that dude would just get in the studio and rip for no reason. He didn't have to go that hard, but he did. And you listen to these songs and it's like he was one of those guys who sang every song as if it was the last song he was ever going to be able to record, and so he wanted to show out on every one. And he just delivered, and he had this aura about him. He was so like cool, and he just seemed so reflective and thoughtful. And and from a vocal standpoint, dude, like I love everything that guy does. It's like it causes me to push myself harder and to become fearless and to record every song like it's the last one that I'm going to get to.
So let's move on, man. I gotta ask. When I was listening and preparing, Tristan said something that was funny. He said you were teasing the band. You were teasing. He's had this idea for over 14 years, and he's well traveled as well. He's been from South America. He's been in England. He's been in the States. I think he's in Texas now. And for him to go, we were looking for a singer, and he seemed like the guy, but he was teasing us. I'm like, how do you tease somebody as a vocal? It's either you're in or you're out. What are you talking about? So, can we really bring it back, because we heard how you heard the music and you were like, bro, I gotta write to this. What do you send it now? So for him to say that kind of threw me off of like, what was the back and forth? When did you actually get that yes, you're in, man? Was it more of you saying like, hey, I'm here, let's go, or was it more so like just natural?
I was in Worth's studio a number of years back, and I was actually recording bass for a different band, kind of a roots rock Americana kind of band. And Worth, like in between takes, we were taking a break or something, and he pulled up these demos that he and Tristan and another guy had kind of put together, and he showed them to me. And I was like, "Damn, that is exactly the kind of music that I've been missing writing." Because it was the stuff. It was similar enough to the stuff that I used to write when I was younger that I feel like is kind of my wheelhouse. Um, and I had just not done that in so long, like that type of hard rock with good hooks sort of thing. And I instantly was like, yeah, dude, send that to me. I want to write some stuff. But at the time, I was living about 8 hours away in the mountains, and I was in a pretty rough relationship with a person who did not um, like it when I was creative, because I was much better than them at it, if we're being completely honest. So every time I created something, I was sort of berated for it, and I was always made to feel like I was prioritizing myself over my relationship and all this stuff. So once I asked Worth for the music, yeah, it took me a while to write anything to it, because I just wasn't in an atmosphere that was conducive to doing so. Um, but one day I just kind of got fed up with all that and decided to regain control of my life. And so I went downstairs and in the mountain house there for about 10 hours, and I demoed out all these vocals that I had written to the song every now and then. I did the melody and all the harmonies in that 10 hours, and I was just sitting there tracking myself, record, delete, record, save. And at the end of the day, I had something I was really proud of, and I sent it to Worth and Tristan, and they were like, "Yep, that's it, let's go." And so we, I eventually got out of said relationship and moved back to Wilmington, where I'm at now, at the coast, and we just started focusing much harder on everything, and we were writing constantly and just in the studio demoing things and tracking things for real. And now we've got this 10-song album that we're getting ready to roll out here.
And having been not, I wouldn't say in a similar situation, but I do understand being with somebody that is just, they're not making it better. They're belittling you. They're pushing you down. It can be hard to walk away. Was it hard for you to realize like, hey, this is the way it's going? Was it a little bit more of like, oh, I see the writing on the wall, but I want to give them a chance? My particular situation was very crazy. I was in and out. I thought at first, I was like, oh, you know what? Who she thinks she is talking to me this way? She needs to calm down, like. And then she'd say something, I'm like, oh, you know what? She might be right. Maybe I'm overthinking it. And then the cycle again, it's, I'm like, you know what? This is ridiculous. It's not my fault. I'm doing the right thing. I'm out. How was it for you? Were you able to recognize like, no, this is what's happened? Because what I've seen in relationships with, say, if somebody, both people are doing the same profession, they're musicians or they're wrestlers or they're, doctors, the success of one can actually be a hindrance because the other's kind of jealous. And he's like, well, you know, and you know, that's when you see like, hey, you know, you do well, I support you, and then vice versa. How was it for you?
Um, it's interesting because I had known for quite a while that I didn't need to be in that relationship anymore, but because of my upbringing and other circumstances surrounding the relationship, I felt compelled to remain in it as long as I could and just see if anything would turn around. But no, I don't think it was a success thing because obviously that time I was just demoing out vocals for a non-existent band. Really, it was just sort of like a recording project between friends. So there wasn't a jealousy of success or anything like that. It was more just like I was being told I needed to focus on other things, or I think a lot of it stemmed from the fact that when I wrote songs, they were more compelling songs than other people were writing. Um, but to answer the question about did I realize or did I get out quickly, it was like when the time came and when I knew that I could set aside the philosophy of my upbringing and the other circumstances surrounding the relationship, I ran. I sprinted to the finish line because I was miserable and knew that I had to, and I knew that it was going to lead to a lot of good writing too. Because I mean, had a lot of stuff stored up over the years.
I love your statement. I ran, raced, sprinted. I hate cross country, but I ran it. So every time I hear these, it's like that's the feeling of, oh God, not again, not another 10 mile, man. So
Yeah.
you know, shout out to Red Room Recording. So you guys hunkered down, and you made it very clear. You guys said you've been doing this since 14, 15, up to your 30s now. You stated you have a compulsive need to do this. And I wanted to see, when creating with those guys, has this been the most fluid it's ever been when writing and creating music? There's a certain energy people give off when you're with them and you make music. With how good the music is, you know, it was stated that, you know, it's never been this easy. Could you explain what it's like in the process and the recording? Because you guys have everything you need in that studio. You're pretty set of like, you know what, we got what we need. We just need to put the time into it. Could you walk us through? Because somebody did say like you guys can butt heads a lot because everybody's so passionate about what they want.
A lot of it, since Worth and I live in the studio, is he and I kind of obsessing over, melodies and is this transition right? Is this leading note right? And then dialing in the right harmonies. And sometimes we'll bring in my little sister, who's like a wizard with vocal arrangements. And we just spend a lot of time on it. There's not so much butting heads. I think between Worth and I, the open line of communication is there, and it's a good thing. We don't get offended when somebody suggests, maybe try this, or ooh, that note's not working. And I think the fact that we have been doing this since we were, teenagers and before, we've gone through those periods of time with other people at different stages of our lives where everything's so precious to us that when somebody suggests something, we bite their head off, and that's when the tension starts. But I think it's a good thing that we've all matured so much because, yeah, we can have these ideas, we can have our darlings, but when somebody asks us to try adding this or maybe change this one note, or ooh, that's not working, it's not as much of a blow to us. We're kind of able to just be like, all right, well, I trust your opinion, and if you're saying this note doesn't work, then this note doesn't work. So I think it's just a maturity thing and a desire to. It's not all about just the love of the art and wanting to show people that you can shred a guitar solo or anything. It's like, how do we make the best song possible? And if we have to sacrifice, kill a darling here and there, um, then it's all for the cause.
Indeed. I do want to throw out I Want You Back was suggested by Jamie to me. And she said it's the best song. And listening to it, man, that takes your vocals up. I'm like, whoa, my man. For somebody who claims he's not the best singer in his family, I'd be hard pressed not to hear them pull that off. Was that the most physically taxing song off this upcoming album for you to sing, or was there another where you, instead of just writing and doing, you really had to put, like we said, the Chris Cornell effort into it? You had to give it all out.
Believe it or not, man, "I Want You Back" is probably the easiest song on the record for me to sing. I know in the bridge there, it probably doesn't sound like that because of those bigger notes that are in there, but the rest of the song is actually in an extremely comfortable range. The verse chorus is it's not so intense and high pitched. And then in that bridge, I've just kind of found a funny little register in my voice that I can manipulate in a certain range. So it's hard and it hurts if I do it wrong, but for the most part, I've kind of got it dialed in. It's kind of like the old glove, the old leather glove. It's just worn in, man. But as far as taxing and kind of difficult song to sing, a song that has yet to come out called "In Quotations." Which is intended to be sort of the closing song of the album, and it'll be the last one on the album that we release. That song, for whatever reason, kind of kicked my ass in the studio, and it won't even sound like it. Like when you finally hear the song, it's not even going to sound like the dirtiest one, but something about it. I don't know if it was because I had been like in the studio so much, kind of like wearing on my voice when we recorded it, but it took some time and it really put me through my paces there.
Man, I understand going over and over and over again, and you're like, why isn't this working? This don't make sense.
Yeah.
Like, and when I first initially heard the music for you guys, it was hearing it over again. We wanted to get to something that was more rock. Um, Initially, that wasn't the vibe I got until I really dug deeper into the repertoire, into the set lists, to the history of you guys, realizing like I see what they mean by rock. It's the music I'm hearing it feels very 70s based, even though it's not that same hard rock sound, but it's still rock. It still has that element. For me, listening, I would say Weeping Season would probably be the best representation of like, hey, this is a rock band, check this out.
Right.
Would you say the same? Is that the best representation? Like if you were to meet a random stranger, like, hey, we're a rock group, this is what you want to listen to. Because if they hear the ones that are a little bit, I wouldn't say mellow, but a slower start is a better way to explain it. They might not get the same impression of like, oh, this isn't rock, this is like a alt or calm or something like that.
Yeah, I get what you're saying, and I kind of struggle with that myself because there is sort of a unique quality about it within the larger umbrella of rock and roll. Because we're not quite we're heavy enough to where you would consider us like hardcore, and certainly not metal or anything like that. But we're like almost at times approaching that threshold, and then we're not quite soft enough to where you'd call us like indie rock or soft rock. Um, but yeah, I think it's just all the influences and the fact that like this is more of a technical thing, but we do use high gain guitar sounds, but they're never quite as saturated as something more in the hardcore or metal genre. They're not quite as low tuned or as gain saturated. So that kind of dials back the intensity that it could be. Um, and yeah, we kind of want everything to be crystal clear. We want people to be able to hear all the notes. And we use more simple guitar chord progressions and that sort of thing because we want people to be able to enjoy and sing along with the hooks, which I think that could kind of be a shout out to 70s 80s stuff, is that the rock bands, like all the guitarists and the drummers were super talented. They could have shredded your face off if they wanted to, but sometimes, they dialed it back for the sake of the song, like we've been saying. It's like it's all about putting out the best song that people are going to want to come and wave their hands and sing along to at a show. So you want them to be able to clearly hear and experience every instrument.
You stated that everything's like a Venn diagram. It might sound a little different. It might go a different way, but it's all still very connected in the way
Hmm.
you've created this album. For me, I gotta say, Carousel is my favorite. That was the tune. That was
Nice.
the one. I was like, let's get it rocking. I didn't even know it was called Carousel. I think I missaid it. I was like Carousel or something. I was so into it. I was just like, but that's where the rock and pop elements really meshed for me. But it was still like this song could get traction on every market. It's not stuck to that one genre. Could you please, I know it's a little begrudging with these questions, but could you please walk me through your experience writing it? Was it a Tristan tune? Was it Worth first? Was it Worth sitting there and he had to construct it all day and then finally spit it out? What was that particular song's construction like?
Yeah, that's a good one. Basically, that was one of the songs that Worth kind of just poofed into existence. We were all sitting around separately. I wasn't even living at Worth's place with the studio yet, and he sent us a bunch of songs all in one week that he had just demoed out all his ideas, and he had like programmed fake drums in there that still sounded good, but it was like a good starting point. And he had all the guitars, and we sat with that one. I sat with that one for a while. It was one of the last ones I wrote. I feel like no particular reason, just it just was the order in which I got to it. And at one point before I laid down vocals, we had Jeremy come in and put down real drums for it, which he knocked out pretty quickly because he's a total badass. Shout out to Jeremy. But then, it came time to write it. And the first thing I wrote was that little hoo thing in the beginning, and like after the choruses and that sort of thing. And I don't know why it just like was the thing. And I was like, ooh, so I want to make this kind of like Rolling Stonesy, Michael Jacksony, like quick words, like modern and sort of rappy-ish. It's not rappy, but you know what I mean. It's like got a quick cadence to it. And I just wanted it to be like rhythmic and sexy. And I some of the words kind of just landed for me. Like when I heard the chorus, I was like, ooh, these are the words that just popped into my head. So I molded those how I wanted. But then some of the stuff, as per usual, I went back in my books, and I found some things that I had said that I didn't want to go to waste, and found a way to work them in there.
And you did it masterfully. Let me just tell some people you had lyrics. You know which song this is, but I just want to strike it. Too young, too dumb, too long. Now I'm back on track. Me saying it, people, is not as impactful as listening to this man say it. The way he says it, the way he writes it, the cadence he just mentioned was just it was beyond understanding of how seamless he makes it. But if I were to say there's a song that I would say is my lyrical jam, it's a New Forever.
Oh,
That
cool.
that was just you're riddling it off, you're riddling it off, and I'm just like, damn, this. You sure you don't want to do hip hop, bro? You sure rock is really for you? We can do a Limp Biscuit thing, please also again go through what it was like, or was that even the hardest one? Was there a song where you wrote down the lyrics, they were good, but then it was a struggle to get them out because the brain and the mouth weren't connecting, or was it pretty much like what this chain was an epiphany, and I'm really happy I came up with this lyrical connection.
Man, so I kind of write the lyrics and the melody and the cadence as I'm going. So a lot of times, like if I look back in my notebooks, I'm not just grabbing something verbatim and copy pasting it into this song, because rhythmically it more than likely doesn't work. So I'll have to change this word so it's only two syllables instead of three. And I like to do a lot of like intersyllable, multiple syllable rhymes within a given phrase. So I kind of change certain words and sometimes, like the point of view, the perspective from which the song's written, so that it could be like she instead of me, or you know what I'm saying. So that's tough because I will be writing the lyrics in a linear fashion. Like, let's say I'm starting from the beginning of the song, I can't move past the first verse until not only the lyrics but the melody and the cadence of those two things are locked and ready to go, and they are satisfying to me.
It's
Yeah.
it's so cool to see how you're working everything. I did want to bring up James, Wirt's brother who passed away, and you guys have all had dealings, whether or not it was producing, whether it was touring, and from what I've heard of him, he was just such a great guy, a beast on bass, but
Oh,
he had this great energy as well. Could you walk us through what was like meeting him for the first time? And I remember Corey Taylor was talking about Paul Gray and how Pantera said, the older brother was like, "Hey, listen, you just live for them." Vinny was like, "You live your life and you attribute all the work in this field to them and hope that they can live on through your hard work." Could you walk me through your experiences with James and how you guys are doing that now through the music? Are there any songs with a little nod to him as well in this next album?
oh yeah. Well, man, James was always just he was one of those guys that when you met him, it's not that he was doing anything particularly wild or crazy, but I walked away the first time I met him going like, God, that guy was wild. He was just like different. He was something else, you know? And it's just like his facial expressions and the way he delivered his conversations and that sort of thing. It was just like, man, that was a different kind of guy. But he was like really high energy and an extremely intelligent human being that was always like fun to talk to. He always like had something to offer of substance to a conversation. And musically, I got to jam with him a couple times on random stuff. Like years ago, we would just kind of like have guys over to our house. We had this house out in the middle of nowhere with the neighbors kind of far away, and so we had this really rocking jam room set up, and we would just have people over. And James came over one time. We all just kind of like went in there and improv together for a couple hours, and he was just absolutely destroying it, no matter what we threw at him. So from a musical standpoint, the dude was so rad. And as far as uh, now, there is a thing or two that we demoed out. I don't know if they'll ever get used, but more than likely they will. That there were like leftover parts that James had written, but never fully recorded. So I kind of learned some of what he had written and finally put it down on the record. It's not stuff that's on this record, but it's like other songs that we have demoed for some future releases. So we're definitely keeping it alive in that regard. And he's a part of. I mean, nobody's over it. It's like he's a part of the conversation 4 times a week at least. You know what I mean? He comes up constantly, and we all think about him. And God, our entire friend circle in Wilmington is still caught up in it. Like he had a huge impact on just people around here in general.
But that's showing how well natured, how good of a person he was towards people. Even if somebody
Oh
doesn't
yeah.
like you, it's you can't make everybody happy, but to have a whole community behind you, remember you, love you, it's a testament to the person. You know what I mean?
Yeah, if you didn't like James, you certainly didn't hate James. You know what I mean? Like there were no haters. He was just one of those guys that you could not hate.
Being that this band not only is just a group of really talented musicians, but you guys are all masters of your fields. We got graphic designers, we got editors, we got music producers. You guys are all over the place. I wanted you to go in depth with your role because everybody has a job that they play in the band other than their, instrument. Could you dive deeper into how you've done the video editing? Have you taken over the TikTok? Are you in charge solely of the social media? What is your vision as far as trying to propel the band through your medium? And do the guys kind of go, go for it. You know what we want? Or is it kind of like, Tristan looking at you like, bro, 14 years and you're trying to ruin it. What are you doing? What are you doing? You know?
There's very rarely any opposition. I send everything that I create to the band before I post it, and we're usually all on the same page. I think we kind of all have a pretty unified vision, aesthetically speaking, for what we want to put on social media and what we want to use as artwork or video representation. Um, and the social media thing itself is more of a group effort. I mean, I do a good bit of it. So does Tristan. Worth does it. Jamie does it. I mean, it's kind of all over the place because we all capture different types of content for the band. And yeah, so mostly my role outside of just singing and looking weird is kind of just making video content to help promote songs, doing live streams here and there. And then there's a lot of boring behind the scenes logistics that I lose sleep over on a constant basis. I'm sure Jamie can verify that. But yeah, it's a business, man. And so there's got to be promotion, there's got to be content, there's got to be the boring behind the scenes stuff, and we all kind of chip in wherever we can. Obviously, I'm the video guy, Tristan's the graphics guy, Worth is the audio producer. It's yeah, it's all over the place and in a good way.
But for you guys to have this type of response to your music, and you understand having done this for years, it's not easy to break, let alone get somebody, just one person, to go, hey, I like that. You guys are getting such a positive response. We got to hit touring, man. What are your plans for touring? Because something, that I remember is you said this band made you go to a new chamber vocally. So how are you planning to translate that? I think that's the right word. I'm sorry, man. A little over the place. How are you looking to do that live? I did mention the PA show, and you guys got a couple others. Walk me through what it was like for the first time, not necessarily in a concert setting, but performing with those guys and challenging your vocals.
Man, for me, it's more about, well, like I talked about earlier, the fearless thing that I take inspiration from Chris Cornell on is like, I think it's just for me my responsibility to make sure that I'm putting it all out there every night, which is a big responsibility. It's like an honesty thing. It's like I can't go all in on the record and then kind of like back off and like sing when we get live. And it's like if you miss a note here or there, no big deal, dude. It's a rock concert. You want to hit them all. Are you gonna hit them all? Not always, but as long as you're out there like performing and just laying down the heat and getting into it and giving people what they paid for, I think that's the biggest thing for me is that, like, we have a responsibility at this point to deliver an energetic show and perform our instruments, proficiently. But I don't know, I've been singing these songs enough and long enough now, in my car, in the studio, just sitting on the couch, probably bothering the hell out of Worth, um, as to where it's in a comfortable enough spot that I feel good going into it, man. And I just want to focus a lot of my attention on the performance aspect, the show aspect of it, rather than just being the guy who stands still and screams his guts out.
You guys have made it known that you want to hit the festivals. You want to start touring, doing it like kind of a Sammy Hagar style. Just keep on grinding, and that's how you get the following. Have you any Philadelphia stories, my brother? Any times in Philadelphia, even if you weren't touring, just being there that resonate with you musically?
I have only been to Philadelphia once, and I went there for a Peter Gabriel concert that I had been waiting to go to for 20 years. So yeah, from a musical standpoint, that was probably one of the best nights of my life. I've been waiting to go to that, and like my whole family, we all grew up on Peter Gabriel because my dad was a Peter Gabriel freak, and I was keeping an eye on his tour schedule, and he hadn't come to America in so long. And as soon as the tickets went on sale, I like texted my whole family. I made them all go to this show. Like nobody wanted to travel 800 miles to go to a show, but I like forced them all into it. So we all went as a family, and it was a really cool night. And yeah, that was kind of a honestly a life changing thing. That's funny that you ask about musical experiences in Philadelphia because that was one of the biggest musical experiences of my life.
All these shows you performed in New York, all these shows in New York and Jersey, and you still haven't performed in Philly. That blows my mind, man.
I haven't personally. I don't think I know Worth has, and Tristan and Jeremy probably have, but yeah, not I, not yet. I don't know what happened there.
We gonna fix that ASAP. Give me
We're
5 minutes.
gonna fix that.
But but back to Peter. I'm a big fan of Sledgehammer, but there's so much more than that. What's a deep track from him that you saw that night? Because for some reason, Philadelphia, it's just this mecca of everything: wrestling, music, the nation getting started for the United States. But I'm hard pressed to find a person that doesn't have a good story about them, even though their sports teams are so hated. You know what I mean? So what's a deep track he performed that night? You were like, this has made the show.
Cool. Dude, I don't. So deep track wise, there's a song called Mercy Street that is just absolutely gorgeous. And this was so that night was actually insanely special because it was either his 25th or 30th anniversary. I think it was his 25th anniversary tour of the album So, which was like his biggest album. So he finished the night by performing that album front to back. But the way he did the weirdest thing that anybody has ever done at a live professional performance, and it was so cool. Like he split the show up into three segments, and he started the show by walking himself out onto stage by himself and talking to the crowd. And he's like, "Here's what we're gonna do. We're going to start the show off as if we're writing a song. Tonight, we're gonna write songs together." So he started off by playing a song on the piano by himself that he didn't even have lyrics to, and he just like mouthed sounds. He like scatted to it because he hadn't finished the song. And that was the first thing he played by himself on piano, and he was just and then he moved into a short acoustic set with his band, and then that evolved into the second part of the show, which was an electric set of various songs throughout his career. And then the third part of the set was that iconic album So front to back. And it was just like the coolest, most unique thing. And of course he played all the deep cuts because he played for 2.5, 3 hours by breaking up the show like that. And I just had never seen anything like that since, man. Very crazy.
It reminds me of the Talking Heads when they had their show. I forget what the concert film is, but they amass the stage in front of the crowd. You know what I mean? They just build
Oh,
it.
nice.
You've been through so much. What is your game plan as far as getting to the festivals and getting out there? If we could pick a specific city to play, a specific festival, this is the place you guys really want to hit to get the ball really going. What has that conversation been like? What was the plan?
We want to hit all of them, all the big heavy rock fests, and even just like the fests in general. I mean, that is the ultimate goal, and I feel like the starting point, which has we've already begun the process, is we start doing these smaller tours, not smaller in the sense of fan attendance, but just shorter runs, and kind of getting our feet wet and establishing ourselves as a viable live act. And there are some other things on the table, some weekend runs here, some larger runs maybe in the fall. So we got to start somewhere, right? It's like we start with this tour, and that'll help the momentum on social media outlets and on streaming outlets, and just general brand recognition in the first place. And then the plan is to sort of use that response and that clout to leverage time slots on bigger festivals and that sort of thing. And just work on up the chain, man. We're willing to put in the time and the effort, and I think we're gonna get there.
I always end these with the most important question. What's the best piece of advice you've ever been given? It could be funny. It could be somebody, I said it yesterday, rent the tour bus, don't buy it. It could be serious. Somebody sat you down like, hey man, I really want to lay some wisdom on you. But there's always this guiding mantra everybody has or hears. I think Motorhead, Live Fast, Die Old, or Born to Lose. There's always that something, somebody said it, you heard it, and it sticks with you.
Advice somebody told me. There's like so many things that It's ironic. None of them are popping into my brain. Would you like it to be pertinent to the music industry or just like life in general?
Whatever, either. I mean, music might work better for our interview, but it's usually life in general. It's usually, just. I think Flea had a good one. He was just minding his business. An old man walked up to him and said, "Hey, young man, brush your teeth, stay in shape. You'll live a good life." And for whatever reason, that's what stuck with Flea all these years later throughout the debauchery and insanity. Brush your
Hilarious.
teeth. It's okay to take the acid, but brush your teeth and work out. So sometimes it correlates, sometimes it doesn't. Us being music guys, it more than likely will coordinate with being in the music industry. And
I'll tell you what, this is only a piece of advice if you look at it through a certain lens, but so this is going to be weird. But the one thing that I think about this like constantly, and me and my brother always talk about it because he was there too. Um, but our grandfather, before he died, he got cancer, and he was fading, and we all it was known among the family that he was he was going out. Um, and this was pretty close to the time he died, but there was one day where we knew we needed to spend some time with him, and he and my grandmother needed some help in the yard. They had like a rad piece of land that you can't find around here anymore. They probably had like 2 acres just in their backyard, so like big garden and animals, and it was really cool. And but it was a lot of land for them to tend, and he was dying. Um, and he knew that we all were privy to it, and he knew this was probably one of his last opportunities to hang out with us. And we got done doing all this yard work. It was hot as hell. It had been a long day. This is so ridiculous. Um, and we were sitting on the porch with him, and we were just kind of talking. And he did say, this is not the point I'm getting at. He was trying to give us some wisdom, and he was like, "Boys, the only thing constant is change." And that stuck with me a little bit, but this next thing is what got me. We were all sitting there having this conversation, and my grandmother walks out and she goes, "Honey, I'm about to order some pizza. What kind of pizza do you want?" And he was looking at her, and he turned quietly and he stared us both right in the face, and he said, "It just doesn't matter." And I think about that every day of my life, because what he was actually trying to say is it's not the thing. That's not the essence. That's not I don't give a shit what my last piece of pizza is. I'm hanging out with my boys. He wasn't like mad at my grandma, but he was just like he looked at us and said it just doesn't matter. And for some reason to me that was really obscure open-ended advice that I think about on a constant basis. Like what does matter? What are we getting at? And I think that's why I give so much to music and film and art in general. And it's just like, yeah, pizza doesn't matter. When I die, my pizza doesn't matter.
that's beautiful, man. And it kind of makes me reminisce of how in interviews, some of the songs, especially references like teenage lines, like if you think I'm the devil, then I'll be the devil to you. But I'm just, know your worth, know the person
Right.
you're with's worth. Just understand your reality, find your place. I think that ties in heavily to what you write.
I think you're right. That's a good way to put it, man. I appreciate you making that connection because that is kind of what I take from that. It's like, who are you gonna be? What's gonna matter to you, and what are you gonna leave?
Well, you, good sir, aren't leaving anytime soon, but you are definitely creating and giving us some of the best music I've heard in a very long time.
Thank you very much. That's very kind of you.
Lyrical delivery that stab in the heart. But ladies and gentlemen, that is our new friend Logan Tabor of All the Pretty Things. Go check them out. They are on Facebook. You can find them on Spotify, YouTube, Facebook of the same name, IG of the same name,
At the All the Pretty Things official.
really want to stress, go check out Carousel. But you also want to check out Teenage Lines as well, the single. The EP is almost complete. They have come up with this genius idea of releasing the singles first and then dropping the full album. So be on the lookout. Good sir, thank you so much for your time. I really, really am humbled. It was so great to talk to you.
Dude, yeah, this was great. I appreciate the thoughtfulness and just the time you've given me.
And thank you for your time. Everybody else, you know what I'm gonna say. Be smart, be mindful, rock on. Ninja out.
Woo, baby, you listen to John the Ninja. All your ears are about to go on a vacation. John the Ninja's got what you need.